Hey, well, good evening, everyone. This is John Craig, and yeah, it's another night of walking in spirit and truth, and I'm so glad that you're here with me tonight. And what a week! What a week it's been, and I think we're finally getting relief around here. You know that crazy thing that's called summer. Where it's just hot. It's been kind of nice. It's been a cool 91 degrees or 93 degrees. I don't know what it's like out there in Utah. I think you guys get pretty hot out there, but um, we've been looking forward to some relief coming up, and I think we're there. I think we're close to it, at least. That's what I'm hoping. But anyway, walking in spirit of truth. I'm John Craig. I'm your host. I pastor Life of Worship with my wife, Sandi, here in Amarillo. And we would love for you to come and join us at any point in time. If you're ever passing through Amarillo, Texas, moving to Amarillo, Texas, or you're just, you want to say, hey, I just want to come and visit. So we'd love for you to come. We have tour portion. And you say, well, I'm not geographically going to be there, but you can join us here on actually on the Life of Worship Ministries YouTube channel. And you can join us on Shabbat at 12 Central Time for our Torah portion. And then after that, that's a couple hours. And then at 3 p.m. Central Time on Shabbat, we have our encounter service where we have a time of praise, worship, ministry, and a message. And we would just love for you to be part. And we have a great group that shows up here online with us. And I always love seeing everybody in there contributing and saying hi and being part of the discussion. It's always good. It's always good to do that. And so it's been in the 90s there, Lou. Okay, that's better. That's better. It's been pretty dry. We did get an inch of rain the other night at our house. Pretty excited about that. And so, okay, what else is on the agenda? I want to say thank you to everybody that has been giving to Life of Worship and have been partnering with us financially, partnering with us as prayer partners, and standing with us as we've been working through elements, battles, whatever you want to call it, things that we are responsible for. And so, we're still paying our bills. We're paying the bills. You guys are contributing. It's helping us do that. We've got a new month coming up here where we need to raise another $3,200, and as well as some other outstanding bills that we need to get taken care of. So if you're listening right now and you've never, you said, you know what, I've been meaning to support Life of Worship financially, and you haven't done it. Well, let me just encourage you, go to our website. It is, see if I can stick a banner there. It is right there. Just go to our website. It's at lifeofworshipamarillo.org. Go across the top. There's a tab that says donate, and it'll take you to PayPal. You can donate online, or you can mail in a donation if you'd like to do that as well. So those are some options. And this has just been a real critical. It's been pretty critical, pretty much all summer long, and you all online have been a big help to us, and I cannot express my appreciation for that, and my thanks. So, all right, we've been studying Enoch. I've been calling it a journey, or an adventure, because that's really what it's been. I mean, I've never looked at Enoch as this experience, and so what I've been wanting to do is really connect with who is this character Enoch, and like, what's he seeing? I mean, have you ever, thought about that? Have you ever had like a vision or a dream where it was so real? I mean, your emotions are locked up in it, and there's conversations going on and sights you've never seen before, and like things that are blowing your mind, and you're trying to get comprehension of it. And you wake up from that dream, or you come out of that vision, and you're like, oh my goodness. And it's like life changing, right? And you're just kind of looking around and seeing what was all that about, and yet it doesn't leave you because it's just so impacted you. And that's kind of how I'm looking at Enoch, and I'm looking at these things he's describing to us. I mean, who would have thought? So this person Enoch, and the things that he's experiencing are things that are within his time and things that are outside of his time. And That's one of the things when I'm looking at that as well, is like, well, how do you actually even get to the things that are outside of your time? Really, seriously. But he is looking at forward to the flood, to the great flood. That was one of the things in Isaiah chapter 53, going into Isaiah chapter 54, the great flood, that was coming upon his grandson Noah. He wasn't going to be on the earth any longer. Enoch was gone. He was here, but then he was not, right? Isn't that what the scriptures say? But then you see this intermingling, and a lot of times we see that where we have these prophetic things that Enoch is talking about, that it's in the near future for Earth. And then there's this other side where it's talking about future things that are our end times and our lifetimes. And we have this dual prophecy thing that, and this is my opinion, this is the way I'm looking at it, because it's an adventure, right? And who's to really fully explain it? So we have this duality of purposes, duality of prophecies, and that seem like they're interlinked. Did you ever think that perhaps the judgment of the great flood that was there at the time of Noah has an interlinking connection to the end time judgments that come upon the earth, with the breaking of the seals and the blowing of the trumpets and the pouring out of the vials, the bowls? So, and I almost think that there's this overlapping and oversinking, even though they're distinctly separated in the timeline of our understanding of history. And so so when I'm reading this, I'm seeing both of these dynamics play out. And maybe you are too. And hopefully as we go through this, maybe we can kind of see these things together. Or if you've got some other ideas on it, I'd love to hear it. I would love to hear what you have to say. I even heard one version of Enoch chapter 53, which we went over last week. And that had to do with they called it the zombie apocalypse. The zombie apocalypse. What? I'm like, how in the world did you, I think it was more for clicks than really what I was listening. I didn't listen to the whole podcast. I don't know, because I fell asleep, got distracted, got cut off, and I didn't get back to it. But they were talking about, it called it the zombie apocalypse. Well, what do you mean zombie apocalypse? Well, if you've got your version with you, and of course I'm using the Sefer version, so where I'm reading from, but whatever version of Enoch that you're following along with, go to Enoch chapter 53, and just as a review before we get into 54, and remember, this is all part of that area that we read several chapters back. I think it started in chapter 45, which was the second parable. So this is all still in the second parable, and a parable is like, it's in one sense giving an idea of an experience. It's giving like an idea of like telling a principle by using a story. That's really the best way to say what a parable is. And yet there's some elements of it saying, well, it seems like it's a parable, so it may not be like, here is prophecy being spoken to us about. But on the other side, it's like he's still having this adventure, and I can't help see the uncanny parallels when we see things in the book of Ezekiel, in the book of Isaiah, in the book of Zechariah, or the book of Revelation, or Daniel, or other writings, these apocryphal type of writings. So let's look at this once again. And as in chapter 53, it's very short. It's only 11 short verses. Then I looked and turned myself to another part of the earth, where I beheld a deep valley burning with fire. To this valley they brought monarchs and the mighty. And there my eyes beheld the instruments which they were making, fetters of irons immeasurable weight. Then I inquired of the angel of peace who proceeded with me, saying, for whom are these fetters and instruments prepared? And he replied, these are prepared for the host of Azazel, that they may be delivered over and adjudged to the lowest condemnation, and that their angels may be overwhelmed by hurled stones. So then it goes on a little bit further. As in that day, talking about, well, one also says that Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Phanuel shall be strengthened in that day, and they shall cast them into the furnace of blazing fire of Yahweh Tsabaoth, may be avenged of them for their crimes, because they became ministers of Hasatan and seduced those who dwell on the earth. So think about this. So they have these fetters of iron of an immeasurable weight that these fallen angel types are just like completely chained up and locked to. In other words, they're not going anywhere. But if it's so heavy, they can't even move. And yet these four specific archangels are strengthened to be able to lift them up in these immeasurable weighted fetters and chains, and then cast them into this furnace of blazing fire. I can't help but to draw that parallel, saying, that's like the lake of fire. I can't help but see that. But what they were talking about, the zombie apocalypse, was this first part where he says, I beheld a deep valley burning with fire. To this valley they brought monarchs and the mighty. And so, zombies, what are zombies? We know that zombies, they're the living dead, right? They're dead and yet they're still alive, or they died and they have some type of supernatural, usually evil, supernatural evil that's empowering them and animating them. But isn't that what the kings of the earth are like today? In many, because I really can't think of very many righteous leaders, that are head of governments. Think about all the governments in the earth. How many righteous leaders are there? It seems to me that the president of El Salvador, from what is that we're allowed to see and we're allowed to understand, in the media release of the president of El Salvador, is that he seems to be a really good guy and has a strong faith in Yah. And in fact, he has regular prayer meetings with his cabinet, and has been standing up against corruption and all sorts of evils that were part of El Salvador that caused violence and crime to rule and reign. And all of that has just been snuffed out under his time in office. So he seems to be doing things right. And some people would say he's like, make El Salvador great again kind of guy. So anyway, that's a little off track. But other than that, how many righteous leaders are there in the world? What we really see, and we really see their true colors, is all these people that have aligned together, and they're just sheer evil. They're the things that are being done by governmental leaders are just, literally their actions seem to be demonic and psychotic. And hopefully I would say I'm a sane person, but looking at it in spiritual eyes, isn't that what evil does? It's just simply, there's no explanation for it. It seems really stupid. Rush Limbaugh used to call things that he called the libtards would do. It's just like, it's sheer stupidity. No, it's calculated evil, but it's so absolutely different than the way we think. It's almost to the point, it's like, surely they don't mean that, and surely they're just making huge mistakes. But no, it is demonically calculated evil in order to kill, steal, and destroy. So if you ever wonder what's going on, it's, just like President Trump getting indicted today, another time, and you're like, everything is backfired on them, and yet they can continue to go after President Trump. Think about that, because it's demonically inspired. They cannot help themselves. Right. Yeah, Lou, it's insanity. It's complete insanity from our eyes, but it's demonic, psychotic uh, thinking. Now, I was listening to a gentleman, I think his name is Sean Reynolds. Sean Reynolds. He is a descendant of the Reynolds family. So the Reynolds family is one of those top 13 families of the world. And Reynolds tobacco, Reynolds wrap, Reynolds, they put their name on a lot of different things. And so it's one of the big rich families that are behind the scenes that are pulling strings. And so what happened is he became a believer when he was raised in this family that was completely tied up in the bondage of satanic rituals by which they would empower themselves in order to get favor from supernatural forces for riches and for power and for glory and for influence. And he's been on the SGT report talking. I've heard him several different times over there, just kind of talking about their mindset. And one of the things that has come out is that in the drinking of blood, and whether it's animal blood or more specifically human blood, is that it causes our consciences, our consciousness, and our conscience to be seared. It literally separates our emotions from maniacal thought. So, because one of the things about a psychotic person is that they have no empathy. They have no ability to have any type of feeling. So when they do something, they don't care about anybody's status, position, what another person is feeling, what they're going through, the trauma it might be causing, let alone if it even causes great despair and leading to suicide or whatever. This is the type, and this is how it affects of drinking the human blood does to the human body. And yeah, I mean, it's completely disgusting. And we have to understand that in Enoch chapter 53, where did they learn this, and how did they get involved with it? How did the kings and the monarchs of the earth get involved in this type of behavior? Because why? They want power, influence, money, the ability to manipulate and control and to live as kings upon the earth off the backs of people like you and I. And so where they learned it from Azazel, and they learned it from all of those that aligned themselves with Azazel. And Yahweh is going to take vengeance upon them because they were ministers of Hasadon, carrying out his will. And that's why it says, that's why the scripture says, don't drink the blood. Don't drink the blood. Pour it out upon the earth. And let alone any type of child sacrifice. Talking about child sacrifice, one of the things about child sacrifice is the very fact that I just think it's extremely, I don't know if anybody else saw this other than the aspect of how disgusting it was at the DNC convention this last week, and where they pulled up the murder wagon. I'm going to call it the murder wagon, where they were taking the babies of pregnant women and murdering those babies and really put another gash in that woman's life, just even to destroy her. And but why would they do that right outside of the convention? And other than say, we're just, like an act of just such arrogance and in your face America type of thing. But I think it's more than that, because understanding like the bloodlines of the Illuminati, the bloodlines of these families, and the rituals that they partake in, is that the taking of the life of the innocent is a source of spiritual empowerment. And that's what I think they were wanting. They wanted to empower what was going on inside to cause great influence and manipulation of the American people. And so as not to flee that particular party and to seal them as a constituency throughout the elections, because that's really what they wanted. They wanted to empower their ability to win the elections. And I really think that's my opinion. But this is much of what Enoch is talking about, where he is actually just saying, look, this is where they got their power, and they're being marched to the lake of fire. And these kings of the earth are going to cry out, and they will still shake their fists at y'all to the very end, when in the midst of judgment, in the midst of opportunities to repent, in the midst of y'all still crying out for them to it's time to repent. You have very little time. Your time is short, and they'll shake their fists at y'all, blaming him for taking away their power, and the very fact that their power was not for eternity. They wouldn't be able to keep it or take it with them or anything else that Hasatan has promised them. And so they get their just reward. And that's just what a lot of what Enoch is talking about. And yeah, I agree, Linda, that y'all must be so very grieved by this evil that's in this country. And it's also interesting that RFK then Jr. would come and join with President Trump as well, because he said, I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me. And I even heard Alan Dershowitz even said that in a podcast since last week, when RFK Jr. announced his alignment with Trump, is that Alan Dershowitz came and says, you know what? I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me. I'm not endorsing one party over another. Well, maybe I am. But we just know that there's one. Well, and even in the other party there is, because there's a lot of wicked people in the RNC, and so you just you have to go to. Isn't it like an obstacle course that we're having to navigate through? And we need to have wisdom in how to do that. But what is the purpose of that? Is because what we see are these alignments and the evil that goes with it. And Enoch is saying, look, it was before the flood and it was after the flood. It was, and how do I get to that point? And at the end of chapter 53, when we just briefly went over it right at the very end, and it says that in those days shall punishment go forth from Yahweh Sabaoth. And so he's talking about in those days. So this is ahead of Enoch, but the description of it gives us the description of the flood of Noah, of Noah's time, and the receptacles of the water. This is verse 7, chapter 53, which are above the heavens shall be opened, and the fountains likewise, which are underneath under the heavens and under the earth, all the waters shall be mixed together. The water which is from above shall be the male, and the water which is under the earth shall be the female, and all shall be destroyed who dwell upon the earth and who dwell under the extremities of heaven. And by these means shall they understand the iniquity which they have committed on earth, and by these means shall they perish. So this is going on. It's going back to the time of Enoch, which is that first judgment. And yet then here we're going to go into 54, and we're going to see like this time continuum fold. So the time of Enoch folds over to the time of the end, as Yeshua was talking about, as in the days of Noah. And yet there was the promise that he would never destroy the earth again, and by water. And so there would be a destruction that would come again when we have the fold, where evil would once again take place, but instead of the same type of judgment by water, there would be another judgment. So let's go into that in chapter 54, where it says, afterwards the Ancient of Days repented and said. So the Ancient of Days, who is that? It's Yahweh Sabaoth. It's Yeshua the Almighty. It is the Alpha and the Omega, the Aleph and the Tav. And burn, baby, burn. Oh, that's funny. Okay, and he swore by his great name. It says, no, it goes on. Afterwards, the Ancient of Days repented and said, in vain have I destroyed all the inhabitants of the earth. And he swore by his great name, henceforth, I will not act thus towards all those who dwell upon the earth. But I will place a sign in the heavens, and it shall be a faithful witness between me and them forever, as long as the days of heaven and earth last upon the earth. And so, and we can look at that. We can go back into balance. We can go over to Genesis chapter. I'm heading towards that area of Genesis 6, 7, 8, somewhere along there. You can go there with me. And where we have the flood, and the flood subsides, and then the promise. And where's the promise? That is in chapter 9 and verse 1. And El blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and the fear of you and the terror of you shall be on every beast of the earth and on every bird of the sky and everything that creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea into your hand they are given. And okay, let's go on down. Here we go. Verse 9. Now behold, I myself do establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you. And verse 11. And I establish my covenant with you, and all flesh shall never again be cut off by the water of the flood, neither shall there again be a flood to destroy the earth. And El said, this is the sign of the covenant which I'm making between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all successive generations. I set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign of a covenant between me and the earth. So a visible sign. And Yah uses visible signs of all different types. And that's one of them that he does. And so this is what Enoch is. Now, is Enoch prophetically saying this? Or did that part get inserted in when the book of Enoch is being recopied and brought through during the time of the Second Temple period? I mean, because the wording is very, very similar. It's almost like they borrowed it from the scripture and put it in the book of Enoch. And yet, could we say that the book of Enoch is saying, well, he saw it exactly, and as it was, and that same verbiage is what is the verbiage that we see within the scripture itself, recounting about the covenant of the bow, of the rainbow. All right, I don't know. It's some speculation, but nevertheless, it says, I will place a sign in the heavens, and it shall be a faithful witness between me and them forever, as long as the days of heaven and earth last upon the earth. Afterwards, according to this my decree, then I shall be disposed to seize them beforehand. What after this, and I'm going to seize them beforehand? That is really weird English. I mean, the sheer grammar of that makes me think, okay, what's he really trying to say? And so I'm thinking that afterwards, so after the covenant has been established, and he says, let's read it further. Afterwards, according to this my decree, when I shall be disposed to seize them beforehand by the instrumentality of angels, in the day of affliction and trouble, my wrath and my punishment shall remain upon them. My punishment and my wrath, says Elohim Yahweh Tzebaoth. O you kings, or okay, we were talking about kings in 53. O you kings, O you mighty, who inhabit the world, you shall behold my elect one, sitting upon the throne of my glory. Well, I see that as Yeshua. And he shall judge Azazel, all his associates, and all his hosts, in the name of Yahweh Tzebaoth. There, likewise, I beheld hosts of angels who were moving in punishment, confined in a network of iron and brass. Then I inquired of the angel of peace who proceeded with me, to whom those under confinement were going. To whom those under confinement were going. He said, to each of their elect and their beloved, that they may be cast into the fountains and deep recesses of the valley. Well, we started reading about the deep valley burning with fire in chapter 53. And in that valley shall be filled with your elect and beloved, and the days of those whose life shall be consumed, and the days of their error shall be innumerable. Then shall angels combine together and conspire, the chiefs of the east, among with the Parthians and Medes, shall become kings, shall remove kings, in whom a ruach of perturbation, which means a ruach, a spirit of agitation, shall enter. They shall, we're going to break this down here in a second. They shall hurl them from their thrones, springing as lions from their dens. I'm thinking like pile on. Okay. And like famished wolves into the midst of the flock. And they shall go up and tread upon the land of their elect. The land of their elect shall be before them, their threshing. Okay, so let's pause right here and kind of break this down a little bit more. So we have a flood. We have these angelic, and it seems like the angelic are now bound up in fetters. We have almost like an interlude. They are. So we see them bound in fetters in 53, and in 54 we carry on with this story with this interlude of the flood, and which gives us this idea that there's some things that were happening before the flood and then after the flood, because in 54 verse 1, afterwards the Ancient of Days repented, and then going on verse 4, afterwards, according to this my decree, that these are going to be seized. The key is in chapter 54, verse 4. I want you to, let's go over this verse again. Afterwards, according to this my decree, when I shall be disposed to seize them beforehand by the instrumentality of angels. In other words, there's going to be a bunch of angels that are going to be, and maybe the archangels that we read earlier in 53. In the day of affliction and trouble, my wrath and my punishment shall remain upon them. Okay. Well, there was a day of affliction and trouble that the wrath and punishment of Yahweh was upon them at the time of the great flood. Then it goes on. So in the day of my affliction and trouble, my wrath and my punishment shall remain upon them. My punishment and my wrath, says Elohim Yahweh Tzabaoth. So he says twice and uses the words first, wrath and punishment, followed by punishment and wrath. It's a mirror image. Do you see that? So wrath and punishment and wrath. Wrath and punishment and wrath. Why does he say it twice? And then why would it be, why would we have this mirror image? And that's why it's like this time continuance, timeline continuance. It's like folding upon itself, and where it was wrath and punishment and wrath. And it's at the time of punishment and wrath, the second time around, that seized before this outbreak of stuff. I don't know. It seems like it. He says beforehand. I mean, so sometime beforehand, we have two different layering itself upon each other, like prophecy doubled together, seeing at the time of Noah and the time of the end, doubled, layered, and mirrored to each other. We see in that time, we see those fallen ones, Azazel and the fallen angels, these ministering ministers of Hasatan, are caught in wrath and punishment and wrath, and they're bound up. They're bound up in these chains and these fetters, and they're caught in the realm of wrath and punishment and wrath, and ultimately to be held or contained or confined and to suffer up until a time in the future. And in that time of the future that's coming, it says in verse 8, and the valley shall be filled with their elect and beloved. So they're elect and beloved. Well, who are the elect and the beloved of these ministers of ministering angels of Hasatan? I mean, ministering evil, fallen angels of Hasatan. And because they had offspring that were on the earth. And these were their beloved. We read that when we were going through the book of the giants, and when we started out in the book of Enoch. I mean, they considered the offspring that were on the earth, which we would say that were the giants, that these were the ones that these were their beloved, and they're all brought together. And you think, well, when the giants died, whether they died in the flood or when they died afterwards or whatever, when giants die, their spirit doesn't have any place to go. We've talked about, where do the evil spirits come from? The evil ruach, these wicked ruach, and but that they are disembodied spirits of these of the offspring of the giants and of the women. And I heard some very interesting things about that. Is that these angels, these fallen ones, these fallen angels, were enamored by the women of the earth, but I heard one person talking about this, and I thought it was very interesting because this is a U.S. military colonel. I don't know if he was in the Army or if he was in the Air Force. I think it was Army, and he had been in those top classified deep underground bases where they have all sorts of, shall we say, for the sake of YouTube, alien technology and gene splicing and cloning and all that sort of stuff, and experimentation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he was getting cut off by the interviewer, but when he was talking about this, you could tell there was he was like us, keeping Sabbath and a greater Exodus and several different things that the speaker would cut him off before he could go any further. Anyway, the host was, but nevertheless, he was talking about these evil things that were, that we read about in the book of Enoch, that were going on. The gene splice. Azazel was known for his gene splicing, his genetic work, and it's still going on today. And so where does this inspiration come from, and where's it taking place? And the very fact, he says, these giants, the offspring of the fallen angels, were, I'm going to get back to the other thought here, that they knew that the flood was coming because Enoch told them that the flood was coming. And they went into the caves of the earth, and they were able to plug themselves in. I mean, barricade the openings of these caves in order to preserve themselves during the time of the flood. And then were able to come out again after the flood, after the waters receded. And then he also was talking about how these creatures, these fallen angels, that he had seen, were very, very hideous, but they had the ability to transform themselves into a creature that was more palatable to the eyes of a human, and that they could even take on the very, very image of these women, the wives of the men that were on the earth, where if the man was away, they could come in the image of the man and say that they were their husband. And so even though there were some things that were off, and as a result of looking like the husband, then they were able to deceive the woman, and then these fallen ones would then impregnate the women and birth the giants. And so I thought that was a very interesting idea and concept. I'm still kind of pondering in my mind, but it seems like there's a lot of good reasoning to it that kind of makes my mind make sense of it. I mean, because how many times, like we read that in scripture, that about hospitality, because we don't know if we are maybe serving an angel unaware, right? Yeah. The Lord of the Rings. Yeah, they did. They have some very hideous creatures in it, and that came out of the earth, that were like born out of the earth. So Yeah, very interesting. Some very interesting thoughts, but we see this overlapping that's going on, and ultimately where evil does not prevail, and these evil fallen ones, they are real entities, and they're still at war with us. I mean, ultimately to destroy the earth. I mean, how else does it get on the Georgia Guidestones if they want to reduce the world's population to 500 million? This going on to 54 and into 55, there's some very interesting, also another interesting element, which makes me think that, and it gives to me, it lends understanding to the logic that I have. Thanks, Michael. It lends to my thought here a spirit of agitation, a perturbation, a spirit that rises up against these kings of the earth, and even these evil entities that are inspiring them, that literally that the angelic hosts spring up as lions from their dens and famished wolves, like into the midst of a flock, and literally just attack them to destroy them. So that's where I see that going in chapter 54. And it says, they shall go up and tread upon the land of their elect. The land of their elect shall be before them. The threshing floor, the path, and the city of my righteous shall impede their horses. They shall rise up to destroy each other. The right hand shall be strengthened, nor shall man acknowledge his friend or his brother, nor his son or his father or his mother, until the number of the dead bodies is their death and punishment. Neither shall this take place without cause. So the way I'm reading that is that even the people on the earth are going to join with the angelic hosts to attack these evil ones that are upon the earth. And they're just going to tread them down. They're just, because they were tired of beaten down at every turn. You know, how many times do we find ourselves like, can I not just get some relief? I mean, I'm looking at my electric bills, like, can I get some relief? I go to the grocery store and I look at my bill. It's like, I hardly have any food here. And I'm like, look at that bill. Can I not get some relief? Did I just hear them say that they want to round us up and put us in camps? Or, can we not get relief? I mean, are they going to do this? Are they indict President Trump again? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we have all these different things. The exasperation that you and I feel. And I think about that. And here it's talking about like the people of the earth are going to rise up and they're just going to attack them like ravenous wolves on a flock of sheep. I don't know. That's the way I was reading that. 20 items for $150. Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Going on. In those days, verse 12, shall the mouth of Sheol be opened, into which they shall be immerged. Sheol shall destroy and swallow up sinners from the face of the elect. Now, we keep going back with these type of themes that are going on here in Enoch, but Isaiah 5:14 tells us, I was looking for that last week, because remember in Isaiah 50, verse 1, in those days shall the earth deliver up from her womb, and Sheol deliver up from hers that which it has received, and destruction shall restore that which it owes. It goes on and talks about, this whole, it's almost like Sheol has this, Sheol, some would call it like like hell, or Hades, or, all of that. So it's like it's an entity in and of itself. But this is what Isaiah 5:14 says in the New American Standard Version. It says, therefore Sheol has enlarged its appetite, or its throat. My version says its throat, but literally it means its appetite. It's enlarged its appetite and opened its mouth without measure. So it's like Sheol is like an entity with a huge appetite, and it can open up wide to take them all in. And that's what it ends up saying in 54:12. So it's interesting that we have this parallel that's going on over in the book of Isaiah, talking about the same type of thing that Enoch was talking about, as Sheol shall destroy and swallow up sinners from the face of the elect. And why? Because the elect and the people of this earth, human beings like you and I, have gotten to that point that these evil people are just not compatible with people like you and I, and they go and they meet their maker, but in a bad way, right? Okay. So 55, after this, I beheld another army of chariots with men riding in them. Okay, this blows me away. So we have what looks like, remember the double judgment, the judgment of the time of Noah, and then as in the days of Noah, and the coming of the Son of Man shall be, and that Yeshua is talking about. So we have another judgment, wrath and judgment wrath and punishment, and then punishment and wrath. And so, as in the days of Noah, so in this version 2, part 2, 2.0, judgment, where we have the mirrored, remember the mirrored wrath and punishment and wrath. I beheld another army of chariots and men riding in them, and they came upon the wind from the east and from the west and from the south. The sounds of the noise of their chariots were heard. And when that agitation took place, the Kedoshim out of heaven perceived it. The pillar of the earth shook from its foundation, and the sound was heard from the extremities of the earth and the extremities of heaven at the same time. Then they all fell down and worshipped Yahweh Tzebaoth. This is the end of the second parable. So we finally come to the end of the second parable. And so what is this army that's coming in that's after this time when all of the kings of the earth and all their cohorts and minions are just simply attacked and destroyed and sent? These sinners are sent into the mouth of Sheol. And so the only thing I can think of is this is the army of Yah. I mean, and Yeshua, and he's coming back with his armies, and the sound of the riding of their horses and their chariots, or however you want to call it, and they're coming in with the winds of the east and the west and the south. And it's such a huge noise that even the Kedoshim of heaven take notice. Well, I'm thinking, okay, they're coming from Har. They're coming from the mount. And they're riding in gloriously and in great power. And that's what I'm seeing. And when the agitation took place, the Kedoshim out of heaven perceived it. The pillars of the earth shook, the foundations, and the sound was heard in the extremities of the earth unto the extremities of the heaven at the same time. So heaven and earth hear the sound. I hear the sound. I can hear the sound. Okay, that was, that's a song we sing at Life of Worship. And they all fell down. And they all fell down and worshiped Yahweh Tzebaoth. This is the end of the second parable. So then they all fell down. Well, who fell down? Well, everyone that's in the chariots and everybody and all the Kedoshim of heaven, they all fall down and worship. They all fall down. In other words, Yah has come in all of his glory. He has come with great victory, and it's magnificent. And this is so. Enoch is trying to explain the times that were before to the times that they're in, that they're almost like they're interlocked together within eternity, and for us to kind of look at it as one and the same within the timeline, and yet we see that the timeline covers many thousands of years, and yet the timeline is actually together and not as distant from each other as we would think. And that's how I'm looking at it. And so chapter 56, we have a couple minutes. Let's see, maybe we can get started. Yeah, we can do maybe 56 real quick in 2 minutes. I now began to utter the third parable. Now we got another parable. So I think it's really worth pondering in terms of, remember a storyline that's telling us a principle, or a principle that's being explained through a storyline. And yet in the storyline, we see principles of prophecy. So, okay, now I begin to utter a third parable concerning the Kedoshim and the elect. So Kedoshim and the elect. So in the prior chapter, we see that, and I had that question before: who's the Kedoshim? Who's the elect? So the Kedoshim of heaven, the holy ones of heaven, and the elect of the earth. And we want to be held in the number of the elect, right? And blessed are you, O Kedoshim and elect, the glorious, for glorious is your lot. The Kedoshim shall exist in the light of the sun, and the elect in the light of the everlasting life. The days of whose life shall never terminate, nor shall the days of the Kedoshim be numbered, who seek for light and obtain righteousness with Yahweh Tzebaoth. Peace be the Kedoshim with Yahweh of the world. Henceforth shall the Kedoshim be told to seek in heaven the secrets of righteousness, the portion of faith. For like the sun has it arisen upon the earth, while darkness has passed away. There shall be light interminable, nor shall they enter upon the innumerable or the enumeration of time, for darkness shall be previously destroyed, and light shall increase before Yahweh Tzebaoth. Before Yahweh Tzebaoth shall the light of uprightness increase forever. Okay, what did I just read? What I'm seeing is that even darkness, we know that death is destroyed. That's the last enemy that Yeshua defeated, and when he rose again, and yet we still deal with death on the earth, and yet that we see that darkness is also an enemy. I mean, think about this. When one of the ways that you can look at day and night in terms of understanding how the writers of the Qumran library looked at it, that day begins at twilight because it's the day that has light, and it goes to evening, and then evening proceeds into night that goes into the next time of daylight. That's why the day and we have night. I mean, and our clock, we say the days restarts at midnight and goes to midnight the next day, but think about the day, about sons of light versus sons of darkness, that we see a distinction between light and darkness, and how darkness is ultimately distinguished until there is all day. It's just all day. And so we also have here is that henceforth shall the Kedoshim be told to seek in heaven the secrets of righteousness and the portion of faith, and while darkness has passed away. So here we have this balance and this thing, and it really kind of goes back into Isaiah chapter 60 about how there's this gross darkness, but in the gross darkness there is also it's that the glorious light overwhelms it. Well, we're at the end of our time, and I appreciate everybody being part of the broadcast today. We're going to go into a little bit of 56, a little bit more next week, and have some more explanation. Kind of crunched it in there, but come back, join us, spread the word. If you didn't listen to last week's, go back and check that out as well. And until next time, Shalom.
If you missed today's show or want to watch it again, or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all the other live Lamb show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network. We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lambnetwork.tv website. I'm Sandi Craig, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.